anyone would build a town out of gingerbread is beyond reasoning. Besides the fragrance permeating off the walls, there's not much to a structure made of gingerbread. Then again, gingerbread has a way of becoming firmer than anything on earth other than a rock. In a way, the structures are pretty secure once the gingerbread settles into place. The problem is the frosting. Sure, it holds when the temperatures are cold, but if the temperature in the air ever rises, these houses are certain to crumble. As they approached the town, a faint noise could be heard in the distance. At first, it resonated in their ears as a whimper, then transformed into a violent scream of terror. Joy ran ahead to see what was the commotion. As she looked around the corner, she discovered the Yeti pulling doors off their hinges. Clearly, he's still searching for David. Joy knew the only way to reach Santa in time was to go around the town where the train station for the Peppermint Express was. She ran back to David, redirecting him away from the Yeti. The pair crept along the outskirts of town as best as their feet permitted them. Unfortunately for David, he's a bit heavier than his elf counterpart. He left tracks wherever they went. By the time they reached the train depot, the Yeti uncovered the tracks. The light imprint of Joy's boot was difficult to see, but David's sneakers stood out in the powder snow. As the train pulled into the station, Joy could hear the Yeti's roar. David, not knowing what that sound was, became startled as a result of the bellowing call. Joy ran to the conductor and urged them to move the train forward. The conductor was a thorough elf, strict to adhere to the rules. With no time to waste, Joy whizzed past this elf, directly into the cabin. With a flick of a switch and the twist of a valve, the Peppermint Express was off, heading towards the North Pole. Outside of the cab, the conductor ordered Joy to return to her seat. Before adhering to the elf's command, she peered around his head to see if they were in the clear. As the snow settled back into place, Joy could see that the Yeti had thrown his arms into the air, venting his frustration. Relieved by this sight, she urged the conductor to look back at the depot. Seeing the Yeti stomping around eased the conductor's disposition towards Joy and her traveling companion. For the remainder of their ride, the pair were left alone until the train approached the gate into the North Pole. For David, words failed to describe the wonder he felt as he looked around the fabled keep. Each home looked as though it were made of gingerbread. Snow had settled on each roof in a way that reminded him of home. The thought of his mother worried him. David turned to Joy and asked, "Shouldn't we go back home? I mean, don't you think my mother is worried about me, especially since I've been gone this long?" Joy smiled and assured him that everything would be fine, then went on to explain that the North Pole, the actual pole, not the town, influences time. That's why there are two poles buried on opposite ends of the world. Otherwise, time would affect Santa in the same way it does everyone else. David asked, "What time is it? You know, where I'm from." "I think we've been gone for a total of 2 minutes." 2 minutes? David exclaimed. "How could we be gone for 2 minutes?" "I told you, it's the poles. Not only does it attract all sorts of magnets, but the poles have the ability to alter time. What seems like forever to us is only a blink of an eye where you're from. How else could we build so many toys in such a short period? The worst are those who forget to send their lists, but we're working on ways of speeding that up." The train finally reached the station. On the platform stood Santa. Not the Santa that David came to expect. No, this Santa seemed frail, worn down like the weight of the world had been on his shoulders. David inspected his attire and saw that Santa's clothes hadn't been washed in days. When they stepped out, Joy announced, "Santa, I have someone who'd like you to meet." Santa interrupted. "There's no need for introductions. David, my boy, I cannot begin to tell you how much it means to me that you came. Joy interceded. Yeah, about that. You see, when I found him, he didn't exactly come on his own accord. What? You mean? Well, not exactly that. You see, the Yeti was there trying to corrupt his mind, and without much time, I did what I could to spare him from its influence. I see. No wonder. It's taken you so long to get here. Well, let's go to my workshop and have a chat. Santa escorted both David and Joy towards the framed workshop. To David's surprise, the workshop was a little old building. He assumed that if the world's toys were here, it would take something a lot larger than this old house to store every item on the children's list. Perceiving his thoughts, he explained, "Don't worry, David. Like so many things in this world, there's a lot more than what meets the eye." Santa swung open the door and guided David in. Like so many other things in the North Pole, David couldn't believe the depth and size of the shop. It appeared to go on for miles, yet it was empty. Perplexed, David turned to Joy and asked, "Where is everybody?" Santa issued, "They're gone. You see, it's been some time since any letters were sent asking for a gift to be received." Appearing defeated, Santa looked down in despair. It's then in Santa's weakest moment that Joy takes over and adds, "You see, the children of the world have lost hope. So many children grow up knowing nothing about love. Instead, they're being fed hate. Parents are so distracted that they miss how miserable their children have become." "What do you mean?" "There's a lot on a parent's plate. They're counting on others to help them in those areas where help is needed. Unfortunately, those in such a position have shirked their responsibilities, leaving children defenseless from the influence of the world." "Okay, that's enough," ordered Santa. He looked at David and could see the change in his countenance. He knew the status of the world was too much for him to comprehend. After all, who wants to hear that parents have forgotten their duties while those in a position to help have corrupted theirs? Santa walked to the side, attempting to hide the pain he felt. For him, the pain is real. Anyone who possesses an ounce of charity is capable of feeling for another. In a way, Santa's heart aches thinking about every child who goes to bed feeling neglected and unloved. He spends most nights wishing there was something more he could do, but it takes a village to raise a child. David slipped next to Santa and asked, "What can I do to help?" "David, that's exactly why I knew it was you. You're always putting others before yourself, a truly selfless child. What I need you to do is ride with me. Stay in my sleigh for the night. Although it's against every rule I've made, I think it's time for the world to know who I am. I need your faith in me to power my sleigh through the night." A thunderous clamor came from behind. David whipped his head around to see the source of the noise. Out of the shadow crept a figure, tall and slender in frame. As the shadow inched forward, David could see that it was a man, an elderly man possessing a vigor of youth not accustomed to someone of his age. The man chuckled. Well, my dear Mr. Kringle, I must say that you've looked better." Santa peered at him, then realized who the man was, skulking in the dark. He bellowed, "So, Jonas, you seem to be up and about. How is it that you've come to find me?" "That's easy. You see, as you've grown weaker, I've become stronger. As the world loses faith in you, they've come to know me, a name that you've erased." "I never erased your name." "Oh, but you did. With every act of kindness, rumors of old Saint Nick swept through the world. Everybody turned to the one who could give them what they wanted instead of what they needed. "Santa, what is he talking about?" cried David. "That's right, Santa. You've been going by that title for some time. Oh, poor David. You should know that Santa and I are cut from the same cloth. You might even say we're twins." David directed his attention to Santa, who turned his face away in shame. David pleaded with Santa, begging him to correct Jonas's statement. Instead, Jonas continued, "You see, David, we were both born to a cause. While he was directed towards the spirit of the world, mine was the world itself." Confused, David looked towards Joy and then Santa, hoping there would be a suitable answer that followed. Sadly, no response came. Jonas continued, "What you may not know is that both of us have been around for some time. I brought winter, and he brought gifts. After Olympus fell, we both refused to die. Knowing that mankind would never look at us the same, we went about and changed our names. I became Jonas, while he took on Chris." "That's enough," said David. "Why are you here?" "Don't you know? Can't you tell? The more your reputation grew, so did the expectation of receiving a gift. The world went into mass production. Pollution compounded, temperatures rose, and now we're on the brink of extinction because of you." "That's not true," barked David. "Oh, you failed to see it," he remarked. "Doesn't it seem strange that each winter there seems to be much less of it? Sure, I'm responsible for winter, but I'm useless when compared to the mighty Santa Claus. Everyone focuses on him, longing for the days when winter is over, never realizing the life I bring. Instead, they're making resolutions for swimsuit season. Don't people know how important I am to their life? Without me, there's no water, at least none that would last." Behind Jonas crept forward another creature. It was the Yeti! Joy stepped back, fearing the worst. Santa noted, "I see that you brought some help." "Where are my manners? This friendly fellow is Drake. At least that's what I've come to call him. I thought about Chase, since that's what he tends to do, but then realized that Drake has a far more fearsome tone to it." Joy tugged on Santa's coat, pointing out who the creature was. Jonas continued, "You see, Chris, it was the 50s. I saw how the world shifted its focus towards you. Somehow, all thoughts and wishes went towards you, giving you strength beyond that of Zeus. Oh, how jealous he'd be to see how far you've come. Who would have thought that a single gift could alter someone's belief in you? Eh, Kronos?" "Kronos?" puzzled David. "Who's Kronos?" "I am," admitted Santa. "Kronos was my ancient name. I've always been a giver to mankind, but everyone viewed time as an enemy. After Olympus's eradication, Boreas and I went about, attempting to carry on our duties. He brought winter, I kept time. However, 200 years ago, I saw the change a simple gift has on a soul. All of a sudden, I could see the hope and longevity of life these gifts brought. The 25th of December was the perfect time to hand out such gifts. Shorter days, longer nights. As the god of time, it was easy to manipulate such a feat. Believe me, Jonas, I had no intention of altering your role on Earth. You know, Chris, I like to believe that. Truly I would. But I've seen your neglect. Your attempt at promoting yourself above those around you is at an end. How so? Didn't you find it odd that mankind advanced so quickly these past few years? Were you naive enough to believe they accomplished so much on their own? Of course, they received some inspiration from their feeble statesmen, guiding them along their way. Now their minds are corrupted by their own creation. The funny thing is, I wasn't even involved these past few years. What they're doing to themselves, they're doing on their own. All that hope and charity you gave has flittered away. Soon enough, I'll be able to send them an Arctic blast straight into a new ice age. No! The last time you did that, you wiped out half of humanity, Santa cried. I'm sorry, Chris, but it's come to that. Mankind ceases to show an ounce of contrition. This world has become so obsessed with themselves, they fail to see the harm they've caused others. Don't worry, though. My vengeance will be swift and sweet. I won't let you, challenged David. Oh? And how are you going to stop me? I've been chosen by him. I know that I can make a difference.